The phone rang at 7:42 p.m. on a quiet Tuesday in late October. Outside, leaves scraped across the driveway like dry whispers. Inside the modest ranch house in suburban Ohio, Robert Harlan, Bob to everyone who'd known him for 40 years, picked up the receiver with the same steady hand he'd used to sign mortgage papers back in '89. "Hello, Mr. Harlan." The voice was calm, professional, almost warm. "This is Michael from Horizon Wealth Partners. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." Bob glanced at the wall clock. His wife Ellen had passed 3 years earlier, and evenings still felt too long. He settled into the recliner. "No, go ahead." Michael explained he'd come across Bob's name through a trusted financial network, something about retirees looking for stability after market dips. He spoke slowly, never rushing. No high-pressure sales. Just facts. Horizon, he said, specialized in low-risk private funds. Government-backed infrastructure projects. Steady 8 to 10% returns. Principal protected. Thousands of folks just like Bob already in. Bob listened. He wasn't naive. He'd worked 38 years at the auto parts plant, saved every overtime dollar, built a 401k that survived 2 recessions. But inflation was eating his pension checks. Medical bills from Ellen's last year still lingered. And the stock market? It gave him heartburn every time the news mentioned correction. Michael sent over documents the next morning, PDFs stamped with official seals, charts showing consistent growth even through 2008. Testimonials from other retirees. A personal guarantee, if anything felt off, Bob could pull out within 30 days, no questions. Bob stared at the screen. His fingers hovered over the mouse. He thought of the fishing trips he and Ellen used to plan but never took. The grandkids' college funds he wanted to help with. The simple peace of knowing the house would stay paid off. He clicked, transfer. $487,000. Everything he'd scraped together over 4 decades. The first check came right on schedule, $3,000 deposited quietly into his account. Bob smiled for the first time in months. He called his daughter Lisa. "Looks like things are finally turning around," he told her. Then the second month passed. No check. The third month. Nothing. Bob dialed the number Michael had given him. It rang once, twice, then a recorded message, "The number you have reached is no longer in service." His stomach dropped. He opened his email. The Horizon Wealth website was gone. No trace. Just a blank domain page. Bob sat in the dark living room, staring at the empty inbox. The house felt colder than it ever had. 40 years of careful choices, erased in a few clicks. And the worst part? He hadn't told anyone. Not Lisa. Not his brother. Shame burned hotter than fear. How could a man who'd always been so careful trust so completely? What happened next would break him even further. Bob Harlan turned 68 that December. He lived in the same split level he and Ellen bought in 1982. Faded blue siding, maple tree out front that still dropped perfect leaves every fall. The garage held his old Ford pickup, tools neatly hung on pegboard, a workbench where he used to fix toys for the grandkids. After Ellen's passing, routine kept him going. Coffee at 6:30. Walk around the block. Check the mail. Watch the evening news. He avoided the financial channels now. They only reminded him how little control anyone really had. Then came the call from Michael. At first, Bob hesitated. He'd seen the news stories, Ponzi schemes, fake brokers. But Michael was different. Patient. Knowledgeable. He asked about Bob's life, not just his money. Remembered Ellen's name the second call. Sent a condolence note. It felt personal. The documents looked legitimate. FDIC references, even though private funds weren't covered, Bob didn't catch that. A glossy brochure. Even a recorded webinar with experts in suits. Bob drove to his local bank branch. The teller, a young woman named Sarah, helped him initiate the wire. "You sure about this, Mr. Harlan?" she asked, eyebrows raised. Bob nodded. It's safe. They showed me everything. She paused, then processed it. The money left his account on a Thursday. By Friday afternoon, the first dividend appeared. Bob bought himself a steak dinner, something he hadn't done alone since Ellen. Weeks turned into months. Small deposits continued. Bob started sleeping better. He even told his brother Tom over coffee. Finally got something working for me instead of against me. Tom frowned. You checked them out with the SEC? Bob waved it off. They're registered. I saw the papers. But doubt crept in quietly. One evening Bob searched online for Horizon Wealth Partners. Nothing. No reviews. No complaints. Just silence. He called Michael. Just making sure everything's on track. Michael laughed gently. Bob, you worry too much. Markets fluctuate. Our fund is insulated. You'll see the next payout next week. It never came. When the phone disconnected permanently, Bob felt the floor tilt. He printed every email, every statement. His hands shook as he stapled them together. He drove to the library. His computer at home felt too exposed now, and searched for fraud reporting. FTC, FBI, local police. The officer who took his report was kind but blunt. Happens more than you'd think. These operations vanish overnight. Offshore accounts. Crypto trails that go cold. Bob asked the only question that mattered. Can I get it back? The officer looked down at his notes. Sometimes a little. Most times, no. Bob drove home in silence. The maple tree's leaves were almost gone now. Winter was coming. And so was Lisa. She'd be visiting for Christmas. How would he tell her? Christmas lights twinkled on the neighbor's porch, but Bob's house stayed dark. He couldn't bring himself to hang the old string of bulbs he and Ellen used every year. Lisa arrived with her 2 boys, arms full of presents. She noticed immediately. Dad, you okay? You look tired. Bob forced a smile. Just the usual. They ate ham. Watched old movies. The boys played in the yard. But every time Lisa asked about retirement plans, Bob changed the subject. On the 3rd day, she found the stack of papers on the kitchen table. Her eyes scanned the amounts. The wire confirmations. The dead website URL. Dad, what is this? Bob sat heavily. The words came out in fragments. The call. The promises. The missing money. Lisa's face drained of color. How much? Almost everything. She stared. The house. Still got the house. But the savings, the 401k, gone. Silence stretched. Then Lisa stood, paced. We need to call a lawyer. The bank. Someone. They tried. The bank said the transfer was authorized. Bob had approved it. No fraud flags raised because the amounts weren't unusual for his history of occasional large moves. The lawyer quoted fees Bob couldn't afford. The FTC hotline promised to log the complaint. Nothing more. Nights grew longer. Bob stopped sleeping. He replayed every conversation with Michael. Every reassurance. The shame was crushing. He'd taught Lisa to be careful with money. Now he'd lost it all because he wanted to believe in safety. Then came the calls from collection agencies. Turns out, in his panic after the first missed payout, Bob had taken a small home equity line, just to bridge until the next check. Now payments were due. Lisa cried one night after the boys were asleep. You should have told me. We could have helped. Bob whispered. I didn't want you to worry. I thought I was protecting you. The bank sent a foreclosure notice in January. Not immediate, but a warning. Bob stared at it for hours. He began selling things. Tools. Ellen's jewelry. The pickup. Each item felt like losing another piece of his life. Lisa pushed him to fight. They filed with the State Securities Division. Attended a victim support group online. Heard stories eerily similar. Widows, widowers, retirees who'd trusted that safe return. One man said, "They don't just take your money. They take your trust in the world." Bob nodded. That hurt worst of all. Then, in February, a letter arrived. From a law firm representing other victims. A class action. Thin chance of recovery, but they were pursuing offshore accounts. Bob signed. It was something. But hope flickered weakly. And the house payment loomed. March brought rain that turned the yard to mud. Bob sat on the porch steps, coat collar up, watching waterpool in the driveway. Lisa had gone home, promising to return soon. She'd taken over bill calls, fought with the bank, begged for extensions. But the numbers didn't lie. One afternoon the phone rang. Unknown number. Bob almost didn't answer. "Mr. Harlan?" A woman's voice. "This is Agent Ramirez, FBI Elder Fraud Task Force." His heart jumped. Yes. She explained they'd linked his case to a larger ring, Eastern Europe servers, fake websites, dozens of victims across the Midwest. They'd seized some accounts. Partial restitution possible. Bob gripped the receiver. How much? Hard to say yet. Maybe 10 cents on the dollar. Maybe less. He hung up. 10 cents. $48,000 at best. A fraction. That night he walked the block in the dark. Past houses with families inside. Lights warm. Lives intact. He thought of Ellen. How she'd always said, "We'll figure it out together." But she wasn't here. Tears came then. Hot, angry. He sat on the curb and sobbed like he hadn't since the funeral. The next morning, Lisa called. "Dad, the lawyer says there's a hearing next month. We can speak. Tell your story." Bob was quiet. "What's the point? It's gone. The point is you're not alone. And maybe it helps someone else not lose everything." He thought about that. About the other retirees in the support group. The ones still fighting. He agreed to go. At the hearing, the room was half full. Gray-haired faces. Tired eyes. Bob stood when called. His voice cracked at first. "I worked my whole life. Saved. Planned. Trusted the wrong person. Lost my wife's memory, my kids' future security, my own peace. All because I wanted to believe it was safe." The room was silent. A few heads nodded. Afterward, an older woman approached. "I lost 200,000. Same story. Thank you for saying it out loud." Bob drove home feeling lighter. Not fixed. But less alone. Then the call came. The partial funds were disbursing. $23,000. It wasn't enough. But it was something. Spring arrived slowly. The maple tree budded. Bob planted tulips, Ellen's favorite. The house payment was renegotiated. Lisa helped with a reverse mortgage consultation. Carefully, no pressure. Bob kept the house. Barely. He sold the last of the tools. Bought a cheap used sedan. Started volunteering at the senior center, teaching basic finance classes. Not as an expert. As a survivor. "Check everything twice," he told them. "If it sounds too safe, ask questions. Tell your family. Don't carry it alone." Lisa visited more. The grandkids played in the yard again. Bob watched from the porch, a quiet smile returning. He never got it all back. Probably never would. But he got something better. Perspective. The money had been his security. Now he understood security was people. Stories shared. Lessons passed on. One evening Lisa sat with him on the porch. "You okay, Dad?" He looked at the sunset. Getting there. One day at a time. The shame had faded. Replaced by resolve. He'd trusted the wrong person once. But he'd never trust blindly again. And maybe, just maybe, someone else wouldn't either. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more interesting, realistic stories. Your support helps us create even more amazing content.